Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Roxana Haddadi. I am a TV critic for Vulture, and we're here to talk about, the best, bloodiest, most brutal show on television, as you guys just saw. So thank you so much. I am so excited to introduce director Corin Hardy.
Lovely to be here. Thanks for having us.
Actor Sope Dirisu. Actress Narges Rashidi. And new for season 2, in his introduction, Waleed Zuaiter. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So it is so nice to see you guys not covered in blood and viscera. That's very exciting.
I prefer it that way.
Do you miss it? I'm sorry that you had to, get rid of it for this. What I want to know is, when the first season came out, I feel like it took TV by storm. It was so different. And I joke about the blood just because I think everyone's first impressions were, wow, this is so intense, so brutal, so violent, while also telling this very compelling criminal underground story. I'm wondering what first reactions were from your guys' friends and family when they watched this. Were they shocked by the intensity, or were people into it?
My mom's turning 80 next year. She fucking loves it.
Yeah.
This season she kept saying, just tell them not to kill you off. I'm like, Mom, it's not on me,
Yeah.
My favorite memory of watching the first series was being sat there with my mum and her watching, I think it's the fight scene in the 3rd episode or the 4th episode in America, because the first episode split. And she was watching it, be like, Shockware? 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 And I was sat right next to her the whole time being like, yeah, Mum? What? Yeah, okay. So that's when I knew the scenes were really engaging.
Yeah.
I met Sope's mum and dad at the premiere in London and apologized to them for what I put their son through.
Yeah. Well, I also think that something that is really interesting is we can talk about the blood, and we absolutely will. But there is also these very strong relationships and dynamics and sort of competitive energy that develop between these characters. So I'm sort of wondering just overall, what was the vibe like on set to build that?
We're fighting all the time now.
Of course, yeah.
It's very sweet, actually. It's
Yeah.
a real it's such a sort of cliche, but it's a very family atmosphere, especially when we did season 2, because the cast and crew had worked through season 1. But actually, if you look at some of the social media, you see all of these deep, dark criminal gangsters hanging out together all the time throughout the last year, when it wasn't locked down. But you had Waleed, who's playing Cobra, and you had all of his rivals that he's been doing terrible things to.
We have some incriminating video of everybody dancing to Barbie Girl.
Ooh.
Which is apparently Orly's favorite song.
Nice.
Who plays Luan? Yeah, Barbie
I'm
Girl.
sort of sad we don't have that.
You'll have it soon.
Here's the footage.
Okay, great.
We're still bribing him with it, so.
That sounds good.
Soon.
Waleed, I did want to ask, were you a fan of season 1? How did you sort of come into season 2? What was that process like?
So when I read for the role, I hadn't seen anything of season 1, and then I found out that I booked the role, and I was so excited based on the scenes that they sent me were just incredible. So while I was waiting for them to send me the links, I just started Googling everybody, and I just fell in love with the cast and the creators. And then they sent me the episodes, and I was like, wow, what an incredible show. I just became a huge fan instantly. And the show has just so much to it. It's very character-driven. It is violent, but it's all grounded in the characters, and you really fall in love with these characters. So I just, and it was very filled. So I remember when I got to London and we started shooting season 2, you forget a lot. So I actually had to watch it again, and I had met everybody, and so I just became an even bigger fan.
Did you have a favorite gang?
Did I have a favorite gang?
Favorite gang to torment?
Well, when you were watching season 1, was there anyone that you were like, wow?
I have to say, God, it's a tough question, but everybody here on stage was a favorite of mine.
we're here.
No, no. No, it's very, very, very true. I was so inspired to see Lale, Narges, in such a powerful role that I was just so captivated by that, and you don't really get to see that. It's very rare. And then Luan, I have to say, Orly really captured my heart. He and his wife, his real life wife, play, a couple in the show, and so it was nice. I got to kind of spend some time with them in season 2. I did get to spend some time with Sope too, which yeah.
That all sounds so ominous.
Oh yeah.
Spend some time with.
That's why we have Narges in between them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, something that I did want to ask is like, I'm Iranian American, and I feel like there is like a certain set of cliches that come with characters from this part of the world. But I feel like Gangs of London does so much to subvert that. It is not stereotype driven, but you are getting a glimpse of different cultures, different ethnicities, different nationalities. I'm wondering how much that appealed to you guys when you signed on to do the show, and how much that has been, a compelling part of working on it.
For me, it was super important, especially as a black man. Like, gang violence in London and like the African community, African diaspora community, like, are seemingly hand in hand, and it's just like violence and like kids on the street just stabbing each other. So to see like nuanced expressions of blackness in the show was like immediately heartening for me, and I'm so proud to be part of a show that shows London as it is. You walk down, I mean, we said this last time, but you hear so many different languages walking down the street of London. So to see that reflected in the show, we've had gangster shows from before who are basically whitewashed or are tightly white or only focused on white communities. So to be able to expand that and it be really London and therefore international it's like not only a key component of the show, but it's one of the reasons that I wanted to be a part of the show.
It's also important, I think, to remember that in Gangs of London, everyone is equal.
Yeah.
Everyone is a criminal.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's a villain in some way. And so it's actually like exploring that as a sort of widespread. And yeah, they're doing it for different reasons. Some of them are doing it for power. Some of them are doing it for money and greed. Some of them are doing it for the cause.
Family,
So
the
that-
cause, the
yeah,
mission.
So you can focus on those things.
I mean, true representation is also being able to be a villain. Like, that is one of the great things as well, is like there is space to be good, which is fun and great, and there's also space to be evil and terrible.
And they are.
And they are. They are. I think, so we have a lot of clips. We have 2 clips from season 1 that we're going to talk about, and we have 2 clips that AMC has provided to us, which are exclusive to this event, which is very exciting. So I think maybe let's roll the first clip from the first season, watch it, and then talk about it. Let's do that. This scene is from the season 1 premiere. I remember watching it and thinking, what in the actual hell is this? This is amazing.
Correct reaction.
Yeah, and then the blood face smear like takes it to like a whole other place. It immediately lets you know what kind of show this is going to be, right? Like it promises you something and delivers it. So I would love to ask you, Sope, like what was your reaction to reading it, I guess, is my first question. And then what kind of like physical, emotional prep went into getting ready for this?
Well, really, it was just an opportunity for me to exercise all of my demons. You know?
Sure.
But also, when you read it on the page, it doesn't feel like that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think Gareth, when he was creating the series, like he has a very vivid imagination, as you can see. But he's just like, I know what this fight's going to look like. I'm putting placeholder sort of stage directions in there for us to do a read through, and then like, what I mean to say is that the distance between what is on the page to what you see across both seasons is like incredible. How I felt about it when I first read the script in terms of like the whole series, I knew it was something that I hadn't seen before, even from reading it, and like the scale of it as well. It really, I mean, it's drawn a lot of comparisons to Game of Thrones, for example, because of like the multi-familial nature and vying for power, but also like the expansiveness of the world. And obviously I wanted to be in Game of Thrones. So like this was the next best thing, if not better, for sure.
Didn't know we were second choice.
That's a chronological thing. It's got nothing to do with preference.
Maybe there's no, graceful way to ask this, but like, how many takes does something like this take? How many days of work?
I mean, we can ask Tim, but we'll ask Tim later, I think. Not as long as I thought, I think, especially on this show, we have a really great way of structuring the way we shoot scenes. So we don't have to like completely burn ourselves out every day by doing long takes. We're quite efficient with it.
To do this kind of sequence, though, it's months and months and months in advance. So
Right.
it's all been, choreographed and rehearsed and pre-visualized and storyboarded, so that all of this months of work come down to the few days you have to pull it off. So or you never have enough days,
Right.
but you have this kind of jigsaw puzzle that you have to rearrange under all of that pressure. But it takes this whole team of people to like all move together in the same balletic way. Yeah.
Sope, did you have a favorite moment from it? Is it the blood smear?
It kind of is. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen the fight a number of times, and there are loads of little highlights, like the ashtray is a perfect
The ashray's
well,
fun. Yeah.
Specifically because set in the modern day, like there's a smoking ban in London, so you never would have found the ashtray there. But Gareth was like, I want the ashtray smashed, so we're gonna have an ashtray there. But there is just something. I think it's the first time you really see blood in the sequence as well. Like there's all the assumptions of it. Like if someone gets their face smashed on a bar, there's going to be blood there somewhere.
Sure.
Someone breaks their leg, they're going to be bleeding somewhere, whatever. But there's when you see that red on the screen, it really pops, and I think like it really gives you a sensation of what it would have felt like to have your face just like ripped open on this gravel wall. So yeah, actually watching it back, I really think that blood smear is just a real highlight of the sequence.
The cherry on the sundae? Yeah. Okay, so I guess my question is, this feels like a very intimate sort of fight scene. It's set in a pub, right? It feels sort of contained. But then Corin, like you come in for episode 2, and then you direct a lot of other episodes over season 1. And I'm thinking in episode 2, it ends in this really wide-scale attack on the Traveler encampment. And so I'm wondering, like, with each episode sort of feeling like it kicks things up a notch, how do you approach that? I mean, you mentioned months of prep work. Is it just an insane pre-production schedule?
Yes. Definitely, and it really relies on. It's got this extra element, Gangs of London, which is this extreme sort of roller coaster set pieces, and they all, you have to conceive them, you know, brainstorm them. We're trying really hard to make sure we're not repeating something you've seen before, and then also trying to not repeat ourselves. So in season 2, you know, we had this high bar of what we'd done in season 1. But in terms of pulling off a set piece like that, and in season 1, I had a sequence in episode 4, which was this kind of sequence in an alley that I don't want to spoil it if anyone hasn't seen season 1, but someone's attacking, there's a sniper involved in an alleyway, and it's trying to create an environment that lends itself to a set piece, and the characters and the emotions and the relations are all driving the action, so the stakes are really high. So it's a lot of factors, and the actual, you know, the tension and the emotion is really important, and then the actual action and the rhythm of it. I think my favourite bit of that is actually the dart. Gareth, who is the master of action, and you know, one of the greatest action directors in the world, he did this, the rhythm he has when you see that dart kind of go through it, you just get these little moments that pop and stop, and so it's there's a humour in it, there's a rhythm to it, and yeah, lots of factors going on.
I do feel like I mean, all of us sort of laughed, right? I mean, like, this insane amount of violence, sometimes the only thing that you can do is sort of giggle at the absurdity of it. But the next clip that I want to talk about did not make me laugh. It actually made me very emotional. It involves Lale, and I would love to play that clip if we could.
I was never going to harm them. Never. Cole won't do anything unless I order it. You think I'd kill kids? That's you! While your sister pleaded down the phone to save them.
Can't do it, can you? Your father would.
Do it! Just fucking do it! Open your eyes. Surprise. Your Fruity Loops never took off.
So, sort of the context of this scene is that Lale is very mission-driven, right? Like, she is dealing drugs and sort of leading a gang in London because she is then sending the money back to Kurdistan, right? And sort of fueling these sort of like revolutionary activities there. And what I loved about this scene is that there is so much obvious resentment between you and Joe Cole's character, but also a level of respect, right? I mean, because you're both aware that each will do whatever it takes to get ahead. So I'm sort of curious how you guys built that relationship. Is it like a lot of table reads? Is it just a lot of preparation? Is it no table reads?
We had one table read, right? We didn't have any prep. It's so like working with Joe is just incredible because it's kind of like their relationship also. It's like you don't have to talk much. We all do, like both of us, we did our prep and then we went into the scene and then just react off of each other.
It's actually the next part of the scene as well where you really see that, because you see this, he's trying to find out who's killed his father and he realizes it's not you, and he ends up asking you to work with him. And
there is a spark between them actually after after this which is so weird. Shouldn't be, but it's there. It's like in real life, right?
I remember, to answer your question as well, we didn't have a rehearsal, but we would like we shot this at night in the absolute cold, wet rain. I think we had a rain machine, but it was English rain anyway. And
it was horrible because it was an open field. And it was so windy, and I remember our equipment was flying away. It was honestly like probably the toughest physical like shoot for me, because I'm not used to that British weather and at night. I mean, I'm used to German weather. I've done a lot of like shoots in Germany, and in the cold it gets really cold, but this was really tough. I remember that. I kept like meditating and not showing you, because I was actually shooting this sequence with you, Corin, and I kept like trying to be so cool. So, and yeah.
I just remember finding it in that night, in the rain, coming in. You guys were just going back into a one of those, no, it was just in a car. You had to just sit in your car, really. It was so cold. And I remember coming in, and we were sort of finding as we went along. And we had real rain, and we had like blazing fire. What's in those boxes is millions of euros, I think, that you're sending back to your people. But yeah, no, and it was elemental, and it was a really special night, and it was the forming of this relationship between Lale and Sean, and it was fire and rain.
If you think she's going through a lot here, wait for season 2, man.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I'm so worried. Something that I also was thinking about is that you starred in this exceptional Iranian horror movie called Under the Shadow, which everyone should watch if you have not. It is great. You should also watch His House, another exceptional horror movie. But my question is, like, when I was watching season 1, I sort of thought that there were elements of your character from Under the Shadow that were in Lale, like someone who is sort of shaped by trauma and by loss and by war. But I don't know if that's just because I love that movie very much and I love the show.
You're absolutely right. I didn't recall that, but I couldn't. Like, now that you're saying it, it's absolutely correct. Yes, because both women, their backgrounds are very traumatized for sure, and they're both very fierce and strong in different ways. But yeah, for sure.
When you're like acting on something different, do you sort of purposefully not think about prior work, or is everything just sort of subconscious?
I think it's subconscious. I feel like you bring a lot to a character from you, and then there's a lot the character and the script is giving you, and you do all your research, and it all becomes this new person. But obviously, I mean, yeah, I've gone through the Under the Shadow part, so obviously that must be somewhere inside me. Although I always believe I let it go, but I've been told by my husband that I don't. So it takes a while. So maybe there is something
that is similar between the two of them. Well, something else that I think is really interesting is we've talked about the tapestry of this show. There are many gangs, there are many different feuds, but also alliances. And where we end in season 1 is sort of a place where this group called the Investors has come in, sort of taken over. And when we begin season 2, we meet a new villain named Koba, who in this clip scared the crap out of me. I'll be honest. I was like, oh, I know this guy, and like I don't like it. So let's watch that. Let's watch that clip. It's great, and it's our first exclusive clip, and I hope you enjoy it.
Enjoy Koba.
I appreciate your presence here, so that we can sort out this unnecessary mess.
Who chose this shithole?
I think you all know his name by now. Koba. Don't forget why he was invited to London. If the bodies were not piling up on the streets, if you would have listened to the warnings, there would be no need for Koba. I've given them my word. Investors, ask for order. An order is what I'm giving them. I expect you all to fall in line.
Would you mind standing, please? Some of you may know Mr. Sudani. You haven't seen him around this table, but today, he's here to help. Who sold you this?
It was a blind deal.
Ooh, exciting. Tell me about that.
No names, no faces. And the payment was offshore.
Good. Very good. Exactly what I would do. If I wanted to insult Mr. Afridi, if I wanted to make a fool of me, that's what I would do. My boss here said this. Nobody sells guns in this city except me. Which bit of that was fuzzy? Which bit didn't add up? You owe a debt to myself, to Mr. Afridi, yes? But that's for later. Business has rules. I see they are followed. Our friend here made a mistake. He knows that. But whoever sold these guns doesn't want rules. They think they are special. Shall I tell you who else thought they were special? Finn Volas, his lunatic son. Do they sit with us now? Ed Dumani knows what I'm talking about. Did he make mistakes back then? Maybe so. But he understands things had to change. There's a future for you, right, Edward? And your son, Alex. Somebody here wants to start a war. One they cannot win. I gave Mr. Afridi my word. I will find you. And you will make amends.
He doesn't know the first thing about this city. Why do you think I chose him? No affiliations. He's a clean skin. He's a wind-up. Help me find out who's behind the guns. These people still listen to Etubani, don't they?
Should just watch the whole episode.
No. I mean, we could do that. This scene has so many things that I admire about this show, which is like a ratcheting up of tension, a very clear distillation of where the lines of power are. Waleed, can you talk to me about how Koba was like described to you? What appealed to you about this character?
There was one sentence in the description of the character that came to me that just stuck out and resonated, and it was Koba at his core knows that you're either predator or prey, and he's always one step ahead of his adversaries. And I think I've always wanted to play a character like that. You know, that it was just right off the page. It was just like, this guy is an animal. He's primal. He lives in a world of kill or be killed and survival of the fittest, and he's thrived in that world. And which is just, you know, the more research I've done about the gang culture, I mean, that's really what it is. And it's so alien to my own life.
Sure.
I mean, the closest that I could kind of compare it to is just war. And that, unfortunately, I am familiar with just, you know, through my family and myself, having been in war situations. It really is this sense of like, you know, you don't know what the next day will bring. So that something kind of clicks in your mind of, I think in our primal nature of, I have to protect my loved ones, I have to protect myself and survive. And I think the pandemic had a little bit of that too. So that was very kind of familiar in my mindset. And I think my wife and I, who has survived 2 wars, that was, you know, the thing that kind of was like, oh my God, it feels like we're in war. So, and that's when I got the, you know, the opportunity to read for the role. So yeah.
And are your shoes tied to this character? The shoes that you're wearing today, right now?
These are Koba's shoes, actually.
I don't know if everyone can see. They have a snake on them, ready to strike.
A cobra.
Yes.
Our incredible costume designer, David Wolfe, is who brought these into play. And they're Hugo Boss, by the way, so...
I think Koba had triple the wardrobe of every other character. He had a new outfit every scene.
I mean, Koba's outfit, the introductory outfit is amazing because I'm like, I know exactly who this man is with this track jacket, with this tank top, with this chain. If there were so many outfits, did you have a favorite outfit?
There's so many to pick
The
from.
red sway.
Yeah. I mean, I wound up taking about 75% of my costume home, just so you know. And the hat that I'm wearing in that is actually my hat that I wore my audition tape, and Corin loved it, and he was like, put it in.
The hat got you the job. I like hats.
I'm not asking for spoilers necessarily, but I'm sort of wondering what it was like season 1 was so established in terms of who the groups were. I'm wondering for everyone here what it was like to sort of enter a season 2 where there is a new villain and sort of a new threat. What was that like reading those scripts, sort of approaching your characters in this new way? Or did it stay the same and I'm projecting?
I'll just say, because when we were putting season 2 together, it did feel, season 1, there isn't a central sort of villain, that everyone's a villain, and like you said, you get to meet the investors very subtly. But I felt that season 2, you need a kind of central villain. But what was nice with Gangs is it's like throwing a bomb into the Viper's den, and then everyone kind of has everyone kind of can respond and fear and hate this character. But as the season goes on, it's not as straightforward as just a goodie and a baddie in a sense. So what Waleed did was really shake the gangsters up.
When I heard who is playing Koba, I got really excited because I was a fangirl of him before, and I was so excited that you're playing. I mean, we don't have one scene together, but you know, maybe next time.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, what was clear to me, I became such a huge fan of season 1, and you are introduced to such incredibly powerful and vulnerable characters. And family was the main central theme. And you see that from Elliot to everybody, to all the gangs, and everybody's doing something for a greater cause. And with Koba, which I thought was so brilliantly introduced, it was that he was the exact antithesis of that. And his code was no family. And what you'll see in season 2, it's about the struggle between power and family. And power is a drug, it really is. So Koba was brought in to dominate those very powerful characters. And so to me that was like a huge challenge, a huge privilege, and just one of the most interesting, colorful antagonists you have ever seen in a show like this.
For those that were coming back for season 1, is there anything that or who are coming back from season 1, is there anything you learned in season 1 about your approach or about how to work in these fight scenes, or anything that you sort of took with you into season 2?
It always feels like new to me, right? Like, because season 1 was perceived so well, and you go into this and you're like, oh, it's like two years ago, and you have to go back to this character, and like, I had stopped smoking, I gained like, I don't know, 14 pounds or so, and then I had to like go back and train really hard to look like Lale again, and so I feel like you have, like, every time you go back, and especially going back to a project, back to a character that you have already created, like how much it's not that easy. That there's a challenge there, because you have to go back to that, but then again, like, where's she a year later, and where is that leading to, or what new color do you want to give this character? So I don't think it was easier. I feel like it was almost harder.
Yeah, I mean, the skill of coming back to something is something I'd never experienced before. Every other show that I'd been a part of, either I joined it and it got cancelled, or I was in it and they killed me off. So it was the first
Their
time.
loss.
Well, gang to gain, hopefully. But yeah, you have to work within the confines of something that you constructed already. So it's not, you can't be like, oh my God, why is this character like this? Because like you made it like that. But then like Narges said, like there are new facets. So like, how does the character change? It can't be so much that they're unrecognizable as a character, but you have to mine new things. But I mean, we were given excellent scripts that sort of teased us and pushed us in the right directions.
I think all of the characters come back a year later in season 2, the ones that survived, and but for me the thing that needed to be preserved was danger, and everything. Season 1 there was a sort of kind of mantra, which is like, is it dangerous enough, and not just the action or the violence, but the story had to feel. I didn't want to do a standard sort of television show where you get comfortable and you know how it goes. Every episode has to kind of like keep twisting and subverting and making it feel very unpredictable, so that you just never know who's safe. And so it was trying to make the most dangerous show on television.
I mean, I brought up horror before, but Corin, you also came from horror. So is there anything from that genre, when you're talking about making it dangerous, is there anything you brought from that genre to this TV show?
Yes. But
tell me what it was.
It wasn't like a new thing, because like I said, season 1, when I got asked to work on season 1 by Gareth, myself, Gareth and Xavier, we were 3 sort of film directors who had an affinity for heavy genre, and that's what we brought into a show based around family crime drama. And so that informed the set pieces. And whilst we would pull from Asian martial arts and Hong Kong action movies, we also pull from horror and Western, and that's consistent through season 2. In devising the set pieces, sometimes you feel like, this is a chance to maybe introduce a bit more of a certain kind of genre, and in a way I would say that season 2 becomes a kind of like an urban Western with horror sort of tinges mixed through it. Horror comes more because the situation people find themselves in become extremely tense, and they normally end up in a violent situation because of the world that we created. So It's not like just putting horror in for no good reason.
I thought of horror in this next clip because I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think this almost goes into like a zombie place in its final second.
Really?
Which one?
I'd love to have done that. That's the next season.
yeah, so
Zombies of London.
This is our next and last exclusive clip from AMC. So
Can I say one thing about
it? Oh, please.
Just to introduce it, because this was the introduction for Elliot, Sope's character in season 2, and it was kind of conscious to make something which would introduce not only his character in this kind of way, but also show where his character was a year later. So.
Let's roll it.
Sorry.
I mean, blood-filled eye feels very zombie to me.
You know,
Watching too many zombie movies.
Well, that's totally possible.
I'd never considered it. Never considered the zombie element of it, and then I saw it as like, oh yeah. Walking Dead is not over yet.
Yeah. I also love hearing that your mom's reaction is this like continuous shock, because that's basically how I felt watching this scene. So did you sort of feel like, here we go again? Like, did this feel like a proper return to the character?
You know what? I think I felt that fight more than any other one.
The guy he's fighting was the strongest man in the world in real life, Zydrunas from Lithuania, and he is literally made of steel.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely I'm glad to say that over the course of the series, I haven't picked up any bumps or scrapes or bruises, because that's testament to the action team for both seasons. But yeah, massive round of applause. But yeah, him lying on top of me is an experience that I am triggered by it. Every time I see this, I'm just like, I can feel his weight on my chest again. It's like a night terror. but yeah, no, that was an experience for sure.
Did the sequins actually like fall upon you? Like, is that practical?
No, because I wouldn't be here to speak to you now. But yeah, no, that was composited. But everything else, like, he is there on top of me.
Mm-hmm.
There was like no acting required for Elliot suffering and suffocation underneath the guy he's trying to suffocate. But yeah.
I mean, we've talked about the action sequences a lot. And I am really excited to say that we actually have a special guest who is joining us, who is the supervising stunt coordinator and second unit director, Tim Connolly. Woo! Get up here, Tim. When I was taking notes on this clip, I just wrote 14 times, like, how the hell did they do this? So tell me, how the hell did you do this? Where do you even start planning something like this?
It's crazy. And it all comes from Corin's vision.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his thoughts and process, the way he meticulously tries to figure out some of these situations so we can be gangs from the first season, but be different and try to keep that same bar. And it was a lot of pressure because Gareth Evans did such an amazing job. And if it wasn't for the cast, that wouldn't have happened. Like, they come in and they put their heart and soul into that action. And like Narges, we literally had to kick her out of the gym every day. Like, no, you have to go home and rest. She's like, no, just beat me, whatever you have to do. Make me a badass, please. And she did it. She was a badass. And Sope is like, there's nothing he can't do. Like, every day he amazed me.
We'll find out what it is eventually.
Like, there was one scene, and I won't say what it was, but he had an idea, because he always brought something very special to every action piece. I think I'm going to try it this way. And everybody came running to me like, you have to go talk to him fast. He's and I was just like, I have no doubt you can do that. But when you have a cast, like, I'm humbled that when they can come in and you can push the boundaries and push the limits with them, and it allows us to do action in a very visual way where we can pull the camera back a little bit more and we can see everything happen, and we can have less cutting. And I think it just draws the audience in more, and you feel that fight. And it's really because what they come in and bring to the set and their training every day.
And so, like, with a scene like this, how do you break it down for both you and Corin? Is it breaking down like every second, I mean, how do you even approach it?
We would get together, sort of like when we're forming the scripts, I'd be sort of having side groups from the script team and the writers, and then meeting up with Tim and saying, there's a sequence that we've got to like get together. It's going to introduce Elliot. It's going to be in a Turkish laundry. And then anything I had in my head, I'd go through, and then I'd sort of be cracking on. Tim would go away and start like putting things together with the stunt team, and then I'd come in and we'd sort of have meetings where, and it's a bit like sculpting in clay, I find, and Tim and his team being the clay, and I would come in and see the shape of something coming together, and then we could sort of pinpoint specific things. We knew in this one, I wanted to do something where you were sort of catching up with the action. It was like a wake of death. You were going down through the sort of carnage of Elliot just off screen. And there was some logistical reasons as well because of the amount of time we didn't have. So actually, Sope and the stunt team were doing the constant fight sequence in part of the location while I was doing this single shot that traveled down on the other side of the wall. But you add to this.
Yeah, and that scene, it evolved a couple times because we had to have a little change. And it was, I think when we were conceptualizing it, your vision was to, how do we do something different, just this one-on-one fight that wasn't seen in season one? And we try to play like, let's go the sumo route. Let's have somebody that's just so massive and causes Elliot to struggle in a way that is so different than he's had to struggle before. And so we tried to go that big, massive sumo style, and and we ended up with the world's strongest man.
You were like, let's just go as far as we can
Well,
with
we
this
called
man.
we called him, and when we finally got a hold of him, we were like, "Yeah, we heard that you're competing in the world's strongest company." He goes, "Oh yeah, I just won it yesterday."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Really? That's awesome. Can you fly here tomorrow?" And we got him in, and we tortured Sope a little bit.
But it does involve, once you sort of get it all there with the sort of the shape of it, then and you're planning the camera moves. All of these sequences you put together a previs where you're filming, and Tim and his team will edit it together and create a kind of a version of it with cardboard boxes and stuntmen, and then Sope will come in and rehearse it all with Tim, and then eventually you're in the set with the good-looking set and the actors, but you have like very limited time to pull it off.
I'm curious for the cast members if you guys have like a favorite stunt or something that you've done with Tim, something you've learned from Tim.
Yeah, immediately. There's a fight in, I keep forgetting what episodes they are. Episode 5, Boiler Room? Yeah, 5. And the reason it's my favorite stunt is because Tim praised me in a very specific way when I did this stunt. And he was just like, thank you for doing that, because it changed the way that they could shoot it.
Oh, wow.
Because it was me rather than the stunt double. They didn't have to like cut away or do anything fancy. They could like have this massive impact and go straight in on my face. And every time the stunt happened, Tim would run over, like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm fine. Okay, can we do it one more time?" It's like, we can do it loads more times, because I'd found a way to fall that was okay for me. But I was really proud to be able to elevate his work by putting my body on the line, you know, having reckless abandon for it. You know?
That in the rehearsal space, my heart was down here, and I was trying to hide it so much. Like every time, okay, let's try this. If we can get you to do it, let's try slow, baby steps. And it literally, he is being body slammed from 6-7 feet in the air, and he's taking that full impact each time. That's actually him doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I just remember in the rehearsal room, you're like, "No, we're going to use a 6-inch. We're going to use a 6-inch mat." It's like, you don't need a mat there. He's like, "Okay, cool. Now we'll go to 4. Like, just get 2 2s on top of it, like slowly but surely reducing the distance, or like the softness of the impact." But yeah, no, it was a pleasure to be able to do that for you.
But those are the moments that show on the screen that are memorable, and it's because they'll put themselves out there for that. Thank you. You know, I'm humbled for that, and I appreciate it.
Narges?
Yeah, well, the stunts room, honestly, was my happy place. I mean, he's right. They had to kick me out every day. I was training with them. I think my proudest moment was that when you asked me, like, I asked him, "Can I please, I begged him. I bribed him. I was like up his, whatever. Every day I was like, I want to do my stunts myself. I really want to do it myself. And then they had the entire, like, there's this one specific fight scene. It takes place in a bathroom, and you had the whole entire thing built out of like hard rubber, so the boys could just like smash me against everything, and I wouldn't die. So you did that, and then there was just one bit of it that we were like, okay, maybe that the stunt girl's gonna do, and then you told me, can you please do it yourself, because they didn't want to cut in between. And it was like jumping off of this huge table and then landing on the ground without a mat. And we did it.
The shower.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was really cool, and I'm really proud of it. Like, yeah.
Like there was no complaints. It's like push me, and that was a tough one because it was unforgiving. It wasn't padded in a way because we were going to have the stunt double do it, and so it's in the shower, and it's a harder floor there because we needed the water to be able to go, and the table was somewhat padded, but to really take those cords and whip and throw her over the table and have her hit the ground like that. It was definitely a stunt double moment, and when we were shooting it, we made some last-minute changes to carry longer takes, and you really see she does it, and we're like, okay, let's try it, and she's like, I gotta do it, and I go, okay, we'll do it. And Alan was like, don't let her do it.
I mean, there's a lot. that I'm very proud of, and certainly in the last couple of episodes, I won't spoil anything, but there's some sequences we did. I'll say that one of them takes place in I'd always wanted to do a kind of an action scene set in a karaoke club.
Okay.
Sort of themed around music, and it's inspired by sort of Korean movies as well. And we really had a very sort of extended sequence involving Sope, and also something in the final episode. We did a sort of 4 or 5 night shoot in this time in England in late November or December, and the ground was freezing, and it was brutal, and I just was like, I always want to thank you for putting up with it, putting up with me, and getting through that is phenomenal.
It's all good, man.
That's my favorite one, actually. Episode 7.
Oh, cool.
Karaoke thing. Oh, so good, so jealous.
It's musical themed as well, so it's kind of got a little bit.
My favorite one's actually in 3, Orly and Rom. 4. Only because, like, I still think it's quite a spectacular fight, but it's the one that is the most grounded in like realism. Wait till you see it. I just think it's, it's wicked. It's wicked.
Waleed, did you have a stunt?
I was just going to say that this is my 3rd time working with Tim.
Altered Carbon was one, right?
Nice.
Altered Carbon was one. Before that, it was London Has Fallen. And then on this, obviously, and I was just so excited to hear that Tim was going to be, that this was going to be his area. But because what I've learned is that the best stunt coordinators are the best teachers. And we as actors are just wanting to soak up because we're so used to taking direction. And I just thought that it was just a true pleasure. I mean, I have more psychological
stunts in this.
And I don't want to give anything away, but I mean, just an incredible team, and I just had such a joy just training with these guys all the time.
In our last 30 seconds, I have maybe like a rapid fire question for people, which is if you have a favorite weapon, traditional or untraditional, that you've used over the 2 seasons, and if you've had a favorite insult that you've called someone else over the course of the 2 seasons.
I'm going to start with the weapon. It will be to do with the karaoke sequence, and it was one of those little moments when you have a sort of devilish, could we use a mic stand as a weapon? And actually, because I have a band, and having a mic stand with a heavy bass, I sort of thought, you could use it as a club and a ram, and if you broke it, a spear, and all of those things happen, and it was quite nice to see that put to use.
I like that.
Insult-wise, I can't think at the moment. I might have to come back.
Yeah, I think that might be too specific of a question, maybe.
Right at the end of the 2nd series, Elliot uses a ratchet clamp.
Ooh.
And the reason that's like my favorite weapon is because it reminds me of Jackie Chan in Around the World in 80 Days,
Nice.
the horseshoe on the rope.
Yeah.
So
Love that.
They're all, that's
Love
my
that.
I love big guns.
Sure.
Yeah, really big ones. I hope they give me one of these Rambo ones, and I can just
Like a rocket launcher.
yeah. My favorite insult is "fuck you, Sean Wallace."
Yes.
Yeah.
A perpetual statement. Yeah.
My favorite insult was mispronouncing Sean Wallace.
Yes.
I did it as often as possible because the guy doing my dialect mispronounced it, and I was like, "That's perfect. I'm stealing that." And then my favorite weapon in season 2 was soup.
Soup.
Yeah.
Soup, yeah. You guys will have
Okay.
to watch to see how I use
Okay.
soup to my advantage.
And you can watch this Thursday. 2 episodes premiere, November 17th, AMC Plus. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. We all appreciate it. And Corin has some bandanas, some themed bandanas.
I've brought the last 5. I made 500 of these, gave them to the cast and crew, and I thought you lot are the last people to see, for us to speak to before the show goes out. So you have to sort of just put your hand up or shout, and I'm going to throw it into the darkness, okay? I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you one to throw out. You one to throw out.
A group activity. Nicely done.
Right.
Nice.
Oh, see, that's what I should have done.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you.